Hey everybody, Asher here, and welcome back to Roadwarden, where we are at a literal crossroads. We have actually hit all four major crossroads here, but a crossroads on the western end of the map, which if you've played this game yourself, you may have expected to have gone clockwise around here. We've been traversing the world counterclockwise a bit and have met some very interesting people along the way, and now we get to navigate signposts, whereas we are illiterate, so that will be fun. Let's start reading here and then get into the context and get moving along. To begin with, Sottle's hooves thump loudly on the beaten track. The green bushes, shrubs, and trees prove that the soil here is fertile, and yet the plants don't overgrow the road. These crossroads must be busy at times, maybe even patrolled. In the distant west, you see the mountain peaks dividing the lowlands from the ocean. The road east leads towards the hills, behind which there are unusually tall, dark trees. The trail south is curvy, surrounded by hills. You don't see many plants on the horizon. The last path is already known to you. So that's interesting, that it takes context of which direction you're coming from. Good job, game. You're surrounded by 4 signposts, all of which seem to be made from the same type of wood, now covered with moss and fungi. Yet the pictures and letters that cover the nailed boards are nothing alike. So, I want to see what the northern signpost says first. It's attached to the nails and made of pointy carved bones and divided into 3 sections covered with small engravings. The part on the left has 3 large squares with roof-like lines hanging above them, no other pictures or words. The one in the middle has 1 square but also a simple horizontal symbol of a fish and a short word beneath it, which you don't recognize because we can't read. The image on the right has 2 roof squares, but also 2 other images which you recognize easily, a deer and a standing barrel. Well, that's interesting. If we look back at the map here, I mean, that's talking about all this stuff because we're talking about what's to the north. All right, well, let's get back to it anyway. So the western signpost, it has 2 planks attached to a single post, as you can see right there. Both of them nailed with rusty steel. The lowered sign is divided in 2 halves. The left edge is engraved with 4 simple shapes. Squares with a roof-like lines. Hanging above them, the other edge bears 2 engraved piles, one of them made of horizontal rectangles, the other of inexact circles. You don't recognize the letters between those 2 piles. The upper plank is covered with 2 short words drawn in white paint, and right below them an engraved vertical rectangle with an hourglass inside it. Well, I think I know what that is, because we saw a similar sort of shape at the Dolem here, which we're not going to accidentally click and travel and take out 7.5 hours. But, okay, so it may have something to do with the church or religion over to the west here. We've looked at the eastern signpost. No, we haven't. The long plank, and it's just one, attached with rusted iron nails, is almost empty. It bears no words, only a single picture, painted with great care. It portrays a city-like gate with a watchtower to its left and right, and a couple of small conifers growing beside and partially behind the towers. Then we have the southern signpost. It's covered with green and blue and white paint that portrays simple squares with roof-like lines hanging above them. Each square has a large letter inside it, though you don't recognize them. Nonetheless, the pictures are not too old. There are no other words or marks. The plank was attached with a set of wooden wedges, because remember, metal is very scarce here. We searched the area. The thicket doesn't help. You notice the remains of berries and pears, but most of them are already rotting, spread close to the wooden stools at the side of the road. The nearby creek is not impressively deep, but the beaver dam, for some reason taller than you, makes it wide and waters the surrounding soil. A few steps away from the southern signpost, you find yourself sticking out of a shrub, or you find something. It's a moist plant covered by fungi. You try to move it with a stick in a gloved hand. After a minute, you confirmed it's an abandoned side covered with green letters and colorful pictures of flowers and trees. So we can search the area some more. We can try to find out where the old sign was attached. The southern post is the only one of the holes left by nails, so we return to the southern signpost here. There's not too much. Is there anything else we can search for here? Nothing much. So, we have where we've been. Apparently, there's pretty stuff down here. You know, we didn't actually go, into the area over here. I want to see what's to the east, so let's go ahead and take a look. Well, hey, it said there was a gate. There's a gate. The corridor of leaves and gray rocks leads you to a gate large enough for a wagon, held together by a wooden bar. The planks and rocks were covered with claw marks left by various monsters, but they weren't able to damage the wall as much as the passage of time and piercing rains. A large man covered in shadows is observing you from the roof tower. His voice is hoarse, distrustful. You lost? I don't know, you mug. So we could be friendly. I don't really feel like being friendly with this guy. Remember, this mug friend, it's going to stay around for a while. Nah, this is... If he's going to get over here... I don't know if I want to ride through necessarily. I just wanted to see the gates. So I think I'm the new Roadwarden. You're the gatekeeper, I assume. Well, yeah, just on duty and armed, so you know. He lifts a loaded crossbow and sticks it out of the shadows. But I'm no enemy, he is. He leaves the tower wearing a black gamsum so ragged it can't be fastened anymore. It tells the story of claws, thorns, and improvised repairs. The hole in the man's hemp pants reveals a scraped knee. It's hard to tell his age through his exhausted, sleepy eyes. A short, unkempt beard, a bandage horizontally covering his ears, and the spot that used to be his nose. Oh boy, this dude's seen better days. The clotted blood on his brown hair, the mud on his clothes and brown neck. Despite all this, he's a huge shell with wide shoulders and thick legs. He straightens up. So, a warden, you new to the job. Let's say new here, but I know what I'm doing. No past would prepare you for this shit place. Nights are all ate piss and blood. Just before sunrise, a bird tried to pluck my eye. This gate here, he kicks a brick with his heel. It's older than me. All there, he points behind with his weapon. Wilds and beast. My tribe built this place to keep them away from us, and us from them. He scratches the bandage on his cheeks. Name's Quintus from Old Pagos. Been there? Not yet, that's true. So you don't know it's west from here behind the crossroads, but it's touched by sickness. We used to send one soul here every morning to escort them back before nightfall, but some days ago no one came for me. I spent a night sneaking wolf shits almost got me. He picked up an almost empty water skin from behind a parapet and takes a sip. I went home by myself only to learn about the sick. I've been here ever since. Well, that's exciting. So if we have a journal here, do we have any information on Old Pagos yet? We don't have much so far. Western village on barren soil that's connected with the Order of Truth. The locals are willing to welcome outsiders. It may be one of the oldest settlements, and they don't look too kindly on folks who don't follow the Order of Truth. But this is the first I've heard of any plague here or any sickness. What do you do about the plague? Not much. It kills. That's all there is to know. My tribe's smart, locking the gate. The right gave them strength. What about real shelter? He trembles, his eyes widen. Someone has got to stay at the gate. The villages in the east don't know about the illness. They may try to cross in the woods, hit the closed gate while fleeing some wolves and stuff. He rubs his dirty cheek. And I can also leave the gate open like it's like a dam for monsters. If all I can do is choose the way I die, this is it. With my duty fulfilled. I'm going to take another drink because he's obviously taking some drinks. So we could spend the night, or we could say you're surprised. That's kind of mean. What about spending the night in one of the villages? He adjusts his jacket by shaking his shoulders, making the buckles jingle. I'm not a beggar, and the villages in the north won't help me out for more than a day or two. I got no dragon bones, just this little ibex. He pats his crossbow. Old Pagos is by itself. We don't look for kind folks. He thinks for a moment. I'll just wait. I'll get back home once the plague's done, or before winter. You look at his disfigured face. He's either mad or dumb. That's maybe true, but he's a bit too proud, but knows more about the locals. He glances at Sottle. You understand, I'm sure, wardens are the souls of duty. I'm not gonna piss on him there. About the gate. See here, he points to the long, twisted rope that hangs from the iron hook. I could climb down and remove the beam on the other side. You take down yours. You need at least 3 hours to get through the woods. He touches his stomach and takes a deep breath. But I need you to give me aught first. What do we want? I'm hungry. Bring me some rations, maybe dried meat, apples, nuts, maybe. 6 meals. Then I'll help you with the... Jesus, how many meals do I have in my inventory? Not 6. That's for sure. Okay. Do I have... Okay, before I offer money here, I don't think I have money either, so shit. Okay. We'll just have to figure it out. I'll bring you some food. Thanks. His voice may be disfigured by his wounds, but it is as warm as his voice. Take any help I can get. Okay, so We have some time to ask for some other questions. Let's talk about Asterion. That's nice, but I haven't seen him here in many days. You sure he's not dead? After you admit that he very much may be, he puts his hand on his waist. Well, you better get ready to slit open every dragon belly in the wilds. Well, do you travel through the woods? Sure. Though on a different mount, he had a saurian 4 ebixes long, 2 ebixes tall, and moves on 4 legs and jumps high and far. It's dark green like rotting leaves. That one time I was taking a piss in the shrubs and Asterion made the beast jump up the rock face and jumped on that. He points at the hill. I'm guessing it's this hill. And like they ran above the wall, landed on the other side, just like that. He snaps his fingers, his voice and eyes gain a new vigor. So, in other words, this gate isn't as gatey as maybe they were hoping for. So the saurian was large and green. I mean, not everywhere. He points at his eyebrows. He has red scales here and on the tail. Shoulders, I think. I don't know what to call it. You ask him a bit about Asterion, but he has little to add. There used to be 6 of us keepers. I saw him every now and then, but not that often. What about the road? Oh, not much. His chuckle turns into a cough, which is about what mine's about to do. It'll lead through the lowlands, mostly woods and some ponds. It's dark. It's lethal. He mentions tales of ghosts, dragons, fogs, and blood mages, but whenever you ask about any creature in particular, his response is vague and brief. The tribes abandoned this path. Ever since the war, the trade has been slow. People refuse to patrol it. The plants are getting taller. But for at least a few more seasons, it's still a shortcut. It's a good thing you have a mount. If aught chases you, you can always stay close to the paths and ride as fast as you can. Well, if no one uses this road, why are you here? He scowls at you. Not no one. It's where people hunt for monsters, and every few days I have to open it for reasons. Well, I'd love to know reasons. So some time ago, a few people from Creeks left their home to hunt. Have you seen them? That's worth asking. I know not about people, but I met Vashel. He takes a few breaths to notice you're waiting for him to go on. They spent one night at this tower with me. Came from there, he points to the woods to the east, and then went back there. They're building a trap. Something behind the lake. They shared a partridge with me, but never came here again. Good soul. Very open-eyed. So what's it like to live in old Pagos? He opens his mouth to give you a puzzled look, then lets out a weak chuckle. What am I to say? We've got rocks. He taps the wall. And make houses, bowls, tools. We sell them too. We grow oats and boats and beans. Oh, and broad beans. I almost said boats. Ibixes give us wool and skins for our monks. What do you call it? The one you ride on. He moves with it. You mention parchment. Yeah. It's a good place. Beautiful old hill. That's what Pagos means. Old hill. When you bring up the monastery, his eyes get brighter. Good people. They came here on a mission, teaching us the rights book. My grandparents were pagans, you know, but now we follow the river of truth. We keep to ourselves, but help others when they need us. Don't remember a monastery detail, so... It looks like that's all we're getting from him for now until we get 6 rations. So, I guess that's awkward. Well, let's see if we can find out what's west. I know we're walking towards people that are potentially plagued, but we'll see. You cross the clean, shallow, yet wide Howler's Creek. Then follow the uphill path, squeezed between the hills and the lush forest. You spend a good couple of minutes passing the haunting meadow, filled with dozens, maybe hundreds of cut-down trees, now overgrown by bushes and grass. You can't think of another time when you've seen a clearing of such size. Well, oh, that sounds good. Seems dangerous. If this goes on, the animals will join forces to strike down whoever's responsible for this. Or the locals are ambitious. We can see how far they'll push it. Okay, well, it looks like we got a big text of uh-oh here. Once the clearing ends and turns into a corridor of trees and hills, you stop your horse. There's a monster in the middle of the road, reaching out with its long arms to grab and devour fruits and leaves from the tree crowns, chewing them without haste. It's standing on its hind legs and leaning on its thick tail. As there isn't much hair on its gray skin, you see its impressive muscles. The beast is 3 times the size of a human, and while each move it makes is slow, its long claws and the ease with which it breaks one of the branches makes you think that a single swing would be enough to pierce your jacket, or just as likely that it'll simply break your bones and send you into the air. Like most people, you know quite a bit about pebblers. Once they get used to an unfenced farm or a forest garden, getting rid of them can be a huge issue. There aren't many blades able to cut through their thick skin and bones, and the single mistake may put them in a furious charge, encouraging them to look for human dwellings, which they can tear down in revenge. The beast doesn't give you as much as a glance, but also doesn't move away. The best you can hope is that it's going to walk away on its own. Maybe tomorrow, maybe later. So we return to the crossroads. So we've taken a peek to the west, but it's currently blocked by a pebbler. I guess that means we're going to go all the way over. No, we're not going to go over here. We can't even get there before nightfall. We can technically get to some places before nightfall, but let's go south. The road is beaten with and free of litter and serves your palfrey well. You notice paths between the fruit-bearing trees on your right, and soon after that you ride alongside vast fields of green hemp plants taller than you are, waiting for a scythe or a sickle. Then there are broad beans, much shorter but healthy, almost ready for a second harvest in the summer. The path ends with a massive wooden gate. The stone wall separating you from the glow of the lights behind it isn't as tall as the roofs, but you can't imagine climbing to its top. There's pretty much no cracks, no missing bricks, a sign of many hours of labor, especially considering how massive the settlement is. As wide as a city district. Well, there we go. I guess that's a place where it'd be happy little flowers and stuff. The birds and monkeys are now just a distant echo, replaced with the sounds of carts, running hammers, saws, laughter, and shouts. Finally, maybe I can rest here, or sigh, let's get this over with. Now, those are two very interesting things here. We do want to think about rest. Interesting. Okay, I thought this would be another one of those things where we click the screen here, but it looks like we're just coming in from the east. A young man is sitting in the shadow by the open gate. He's young, tan, and has a short, elegantly trimmed red beard. Beneath the green gamsum he wears is an expensive tunic decorated with colorful trim. From his arm hangs a steel helmet, though the metal is so thin that it's mostly made of wool and leather. He gets up and takes a posture of a disciplined soldier, not a mercenary. He's standing upright with his chin up, and there are two weapons on the ground. Leaning on the wooden beams of the gate, an axe made of steel and a wooden club. He doesn't reach for either. You dismount smoothly, still having some vigor left. Clearly, we have quite a bit of vitality here. Saddle holds its tail high. A narrow path leads south towards two field workers, one with a hoe and a pitchfork. They wave at you. You can't see their faces, but their clothes are simple. Gray pants vest made from the hemp and wool. I'm going to wave back. Kira, I mean, she's not that much of a badass, or she won't just ignore a friendly wave. They talk for a bit, looking towards you and pointing at your mount, then walk away, disappearing behind the wall's corner. The guard smiles, yet avoid your eyes, and has to clear his throat before he speaks. Welcome, traveler. If you're here to make trouble, Howler's Dell welcomes you. We have the widest flower there is. When he bows, you realize it's a well-practiced performance. If it's new garments you're looking for, you can order everything you need right here, in all colors, shapes, and sizes. Capes, boots, vest, robes, or if you're yourself a master for the needle, I can assure you we have the fabric you're looking for. His act is over and he glances at your mount in a moment of silence, his eyes widen. So I have one of two things. This is Sodal. It helps me patrol the road. You can pet its side if you want, but no sudden movements. Or I'm Kira, your new Roadwarden. I want to see your mare. Do we let him pet the horse? Do we let him pet the horse? I think we let him pet the horse. He follows your instructions, even though your palfrey pays no attention to the man's careful touch. The guard grins widely. See, there we go. That's the lesson we've learned from maybe going up to creeks here and pissing them off a little bit. We try to be a little nicer, and maybe people will listen to us a little bit. I'm Kira, your new Roadwarden. I want to see your mare. As city folk, the mayor's busy, but I'll ask her for now. Come in, please. Take a look at our square. It's not too crowded, with only a few buildings on the edges and a humming creek running west of here. Through the center of the village, a large tree grows in the center, surrounded by dark water, held together by a thin wall, perfect for sitting. But the smell coming from the liquid makes you think of rotten eggs. The plant carries no leaves, but you can't tell if it's truly withered. In the north, you see the tallest building in the settlement, nicely whitewashed, very city-like. Judging by the tablet stools and benches outside, it's an inn. And it's open for guests. The villagers, all of them tall, are chatting and dining loudly, and you catch their curious glances. On the side of the dining area, there's a merchant stall. He's currently arguing with a tall, broad-shouldered elder. The guard closes the gate and blocks it with a wooden beam, then asks you to wait for a bit. So I need a spot to tether Sodal. There's a wide wooden roof right next to the gate that shelters crates, carts, and sacks. You move your mount next to a donkey to a beam placed there just for this purpose. Without a moment of hesitation, Saddle starts to chew the nearby haystack. You have some time to make sure it doesn't struggle with your bundles. The guard returns to alone. She cannot come now. A friend of mine is in labor. The mayor, wants to be there when the child arrives, but I was asked to show you the village. Fine. He takes you north past the inn through the narrow alley. You pass a tiny herbal garden and a pasturage surrounded by a wooden fence. But the only animals you see around are a loose chicken and a boar tied to a building, even though you can hear the muffled flock in the distance. Without haste, the guard tells you about Howler's Creek. It's wide yet shallow, gentle, hasn't overflooded with its banks in years. Going to its source, you'll find no other settlement, so it stays clean and fresh. But there are hardly any fish in it, so only a select few are allowed to hunt for them. We're the cleanest village in the north, he chuckles brightly. He walks to the ladder made of ropes and sticks, which leads to the top of the watchtower. Come with me, traveler. The view up top is gorgeous. Oh, God. I nod and think of my knife. If it's a trap, I'll get him first. No, we're going to climb. Even though the ladder swings in all directions, the guard gets to the top quickly, like a monkey climbing up creepers. You, on the other hand, need to stop and wait for the ladder to calm itself. When you join the man on the wooden platform, you're a bit dizzy. He's leaning on the wooden parapet, observing the area with a smile. So we stop to look around, and there is the rest of the city here. See? The nigh places like Howler's Dell. The guard starts to point in all sorts of directions, giving you no time to contemplate. For the next few minutes, he describes the fields and their crops, the flocks and the pastures, and the shepherds inspecting the fences. The ancient garden of trees and bushes larger than the village itself, the sunlight dancing in the streams in its own tune. If you were to believe everything he describes, this place has access to everything in abundance. The sweetest honey, the most fragrant bread, the softest wool, and the beer? 'Tis excellent. He sounds like a city merchant who's trying to sell an old house. Yeah, well, everyone wants to sell for their place. What an annoying kid. Near Havelman, you could find 5 larger and richer settlements in less than 2 days. Well, I think this is better. Remember, one of our goals here, if we look back over at our quest, is that we're trying to find a new life. So we're not very impressed with Havelvan here. They've tamed this wild scrap of landscape and live in comfort. The islet in the middle connects both parts of the village. There are 3 gates, though according to him, the northern one is hardly ever open and leads to pretty much nowhere. You've already seen the Ape Ale Inn, where you can find a bed and victuals, and there's a stall where Akios rewards our work, at least as long as we don't annoy him with pointless talk. On the opposite side of the creek, there's another white house. It belongs to Beyond, the best clothier in the north. The priests live in the southeast near the wall, but they don't talk to strangers. You hear about the hunter, the cooper, the fisher, the miller. The pie maker lives with the sister, and the baker, the smith. I feel like I need to write down all these people if I'm going to have to start typing to see who I can find next. They live with their kids. Some of the larger buildings could accommodate 2, maybe even 3 generations at once. There could be more than 100 dwellers here. You consider stopping a speech when he suddenly points to the Isligan. You see? The mayor's coming. The one wearing the purple. You're free to join her, traveler. So, climb on down. You try to get down quickly, but 2 steps are enough to make it clear that's a bad idea. You wait for the ladder to find its balance and are relieved when you touch ground again. The tables in front of the inn are now crowded. The people on stools talk to each other loud enough to help the lone trader hear them. An old man is sitting by himself eating a pie, with a walking stick leaning against the table. A young woman is cleaning empty mugs in the creek. Well, I guess it is clean water. Speaking with a man at least twice her age, maybe her father. So we look at the mayor and approach her. She's sitting on a chair with a 4-year-old boy on her knee. She's holding his hand gently, showing him how to eat gruel from a bowl. It's not a cheap meal, though. You spot nuts, berries, and milk, and the added honey makes it yellowish. This kid is clean and quiet, and once he notices your arrival, he crams his mouth with a spoonful of oats. Now, love, the mayor titters. Did not get distracted. She rubs the meal off of his face. A few more spoons and you'll go to help Papa in the kitchen, aye? She gives you a radiant, though apologetic smile, then turns her attention back to her companion. So, observing her closely, we see her long, full-sleeved linen dress must have been dyed once in blue and once in red to achieve this dark, fancy purple, which would draw looks even in Havelvan From her left shoulder hangs a green woolen cape as thin as a shawl. The brown belt on her waist has a large steel buckle that portrays a running deer with unrealistically large antlers, growing in all directions like tree branches. Unlike her tribesfolk, she's pale, with powdered and rouged cheeks, and her lips match her outfit, though they're a bit closer to wine red. The thick gray strands on her long blonde hair look more like a fashion choice than the result of aging, and her eyes are the color of her cape, keen and vigorous, and green. She's shorter than most people around, though, would still be the tallest woman in most of the northern settlements. While she's around 40, her slim hand adds fragility to her appearance. Even though her posture is upright, her legs confidently crossed, and her delicate voice assertive, she makes plenty of gestures, but her shoulders hardly ever move. So, this is the mayor. She looked at us. I'm just going to sit down. And that's the thing, is that typically you'd think you'd be wait for somebody in formalities here, but how far have we traveled? We're not waiting here, so... Just a moment, please. Ha! I've already pissed her off. She glances at you harshly and puts the boy on the ground. I'm sorry, love, but I need to speak with our guest, darling. She addresses one of the inn workers, a girl close to 15. Take him to father, will you? Her tone suddenly gets firmer, leaving no hint of a question or suggestion. Oh, so, take him to father, will you? Yes, Ma, she responds. Both her hair and her eyes are nothing like those of her brother, and neither of these kids resemble their mother. The flowing water hits silently in the rocks and the wooden stakes surrounding the isle, then splits the two stream beds. In Howler, the river is surrounded by tall walls, protecting the banks from deterioration. The water is seldom free of dirt. Here, the smell is as fresh as it would be in the woods. So we have a Roadwarden again. Sunlight. I'm sure you're hungry. My husband will bring us something soon. I am a little hungry. Not gonna say no to free food, that's for sure. Didn't mention it. Hunger makes me peevish. Even the day is too nice for that. She taps her chest and looks at a flock of birds as they fly above you, heading south. As we're waiting, be so good as to help me understand something. Ever if you're a mercenary, I cannot imagine a single reason you would choose this realm for your wandering. Not so long after Asterian's disappearance, this not glory or treasures to find here. Her pale fingers form a tent on her stomach, then clasp, leaving the forefingers pointing at you. You were sent here by the merchants. They want the peninsula. Well, that is technically, if we look in the journal, the Merchants Guild did send us, so she's kind of nailed us. That's true. So, we could say it's an opportunity. I portray the situation as lightly as I can. I think we just explain it. You introduce yourself and confirm her suspicions. The guild and the deputy are in agreement. They're willing to send troops to cover this place, defend the settlements, and patrol the roads. They'd cover their pay. You'd only have to look after their board and lodging. You explain that the rate of taxes is open to negotiations, so they would take twice a year in the spring and fall. You have time to think about it, you assure, and you're free to consult with your people. Safer roads bring many travelers, artisans, merchants. I know you realize this is an opportunity. Yes, I do, she finally interrupts you. But roads bring other people as well, not all of them desired by us. And she observes your palfrey. She twists her deer buckle left and right, left and right. The times have changed, and your superiors were kind enough to send a messenger, not a temple guard with a list of demands. She grasps the buckle with her wrist. But when it comes to the guild, there's always a catch. Her accent is now almost identical to the one used in the city. So, let me just ask the dumb question. Well, maybe I phrased it poorly. She burst into a joyless laughter. Ha ha, not a catch, but rather all sorts of traps and omissions. Like with the saying, give them a finger and they'll take the whole hand. Here, listen to this trick I learned about during my studies. She theatrically clears her throat, patting her chest with one hand and covering her mouth with another, then leans forward and rests on her elbows, allowing her hands to freely make gestures. You make a deal with the settlement, flour and wool in exchange for coin and tools. You send the first traders, and they imply that you're ready to pay for more. Let's say parchment. Months later, when you want no more rye, just as the parchment wool, we can butcher any more mufflins, the locals say. Don't worry, you answer. We'll send you a small flock. Just turn one of your fields into a pasturage. Well, that's That's just because you need to get shit in writing. You don't imply nothing. As she pretends to speak in different characters, her voice comically shifts, and she has no issues switching between accents. Let's see. Let's try the kindness angle here. She swings her hand above the table. Another year goes by, and while there's more parchment, the village lacks crops. The tribe needs not just tools and coins, plenty of coins, but also seeds, and the guild is not satisfied. Sending our wagons cost a lot, and there are more highwaymen now. If you want us to come again, you need more mufflins and to sell us their cheese. And guess what? With a haunting laugh, she straightens up and spreads her arms like some third race. Turns out that the village can't say no anymore. They lack supplies, seeds, and land. They can't refuse. Well, we have here. I could just play stupid again. We could try to kiss her ass, which I also don't think of that here. Don't you think the city would see value in keeping you strong? Fewer risk for them? That's a good way to look at it. Ha! I definitely don't think so. When the 10 cities are trying to get back on their feet, the tribes are safe, but once they feel confident enough to strike down the resistance, oh, they will. Especially since there's no imperial court to temper their ambitions. She reaches for her buckle. A weak settlement with a garrison loyal to Havelvin's interest is always more reliable than a place like ours, which can always get loose. No matter what happens, I'm going to look at their hands. And you can tell them that. She nods towards you. But you should also take an example from our caution. She straightens up and adjusts her cape. Let's finish the introductions. I'm Thais, one of the keepers of the 8 Bale Inn and the mayor of Howler's Dell. I assume it would be convenient for you to take my answer back to Havelvin. She wonders for a moment. Say, when could we expect the first caravan? After winter? Well, it depends on what you sell and what you want in return. While the conversation goes on, the food gets served. Yes, we are less hungry now. Food gets served. A refreshing aroma of roasted mutton covered with a thick sauce made of mint, parsley, and honey tempts you to bite right away. The juices are sinking into the round trencher. A plate made of simple brown bread. There's also a small bowl filled with chopped radishes and a sliced boiled egg. A mug filled with a cold buttermilk. This is the kind of meal we need to stick our pinky out because it's fancy. All right. It's all brought by a few young people, all of them referring to the mayor as their mother. And in the end, the innkeeper himself shows up to wish you a good meal. He's wearing a clean orange tunic and not-so-clean apron made of hemp. He politely introduces himself as Erix, and after confirming you won't get sick from what he's prepared, he leaves you and his wife to the conversation. Thais tears into the meat into smaller pieces, then eats slowly, often expressing her enjoyment with a hum. So, that wasn't the important stuff. We're getting to the important stuff now. Sounds like the nearby ground is fertile. The village would gladly pay its taxes in grain and vegetables, with the expectation that a squad of soldiers would provide additional protection. Our youth is strong, she claims proudly, so we don't need your guards on our walls, but a lone Roadwarden won't help these roads keep these roads passable. We need fighters willing to patrol the paths, maybe even the heart of the woods. That's what we expect in return. You're not an expert when it comes to linen, cheese, or wool, so the mayor spends a good couple of minutes describing the outstanding quality of what the village has to offer, especially the clothes, which are meant to be as unique as those made by Master Crispus. You vaguely recognize the name of this tailor shoemaker, but you've never earned enough to pay him for as much as a single sleeve. And of course, we'll never reject some steel and bronze. We lack alloys for sickles and scythes. She then repeats her question about starting a trade route. So, truth be told, the guild is not sure what the peninsula has to offer. It's going to take more than your village to convince them. Understandable, but you won't find much of the other tribes. They have barely enough to survive, even after they trade for our crops. We have only the decent soil in this realm. At least the people of Gale Rocks have salt and barrels of fish, which I guess we saw a barrel picture in that sign earlier. While Creek sells meat and wood. Actually, if you haven't been to Creeks yet, the farthest village in the northeast, you could give them a chance, she nods with a smile. They could use your help with keeping the roads safe. White Marshes, on the other hand, as well as Old Pagos, are close to worthless, for a trade route, that is. She clears her throat. After these words, she stands up, walks to another table, and offers her trencher to an elderly man who sits by himself. With a trembling voice, he thanks her, then starts to chew on the soggy bread. She sits down, wipes her hand with a clean cloth, adjusts the folds to her cape, and once again crosses her legs. So tell me, Kira, how's Havelvin? I haven't gathered much news since the invasion. So we have some options for things that we can say, and from what I understand, these actually do affect the game. So we can say things are humble but starting to look brighter, sometimes better, sometimes worse. Not everyone has their own bed, so a new generation is ready to start their own fight. It's far from great. Children who lost their parents during the war have no trade in hand, and there are not enough settlements to send them away. Many people are unable to prosper. Well, that sounds correct. It couldn't be easy, not after all the blows that landed on that place. That's the thing with the works of humans, isn't it? A house you build for half a year turns into dust with a single storm. A proud city falls, the emperor's mask shatters. The children from this village, she glances at a young girl cleaning the table, are just as fragile. They have food, clothes, and walls. But there will be a time of disaster, and once it strikes, and only then, they'll take to heart the same lesson the cities had to learn, and it will be forgotten again by the next sunny spring. She pauses and looks at you with a sad smile. But don't let me babble any longer. What can I do for you? So, she's told me a bit about Howler's Dell. We don't want to start with that. Let's ask about Asterion. She stares into your eyes and turns towards Sodal. Is that your palfrey or mare? We have 2 jacks. Oh. She's trying to avoid here. It's a stallion, so it won't give you anything stronger than a henny. Right, there's no time for romances on drawed animals. It would take almost a year, correct? It was just a thought. When her eyes return to you, they regain sharpness. I'd rather avoid long talks about that man. Let him remain a part of the past spring. Since you're asking about him, I can only assume he was indeed sharing his goal with you. Well, I'm going to try to lie here because I really don't think... I don't know what his goal was. You sit without a word, listening to the creak until she sighs exaggeratingly. Why are you doing this to me, traveler? Now I have to figure out if you're lying or simply wrong. But back to your question. She takes a deep breath. Asterion is not welcome here, and I don't know where he went. Well, what were his wrongdoings? Well, if you have to know, he failed, and he won't get a second chance. He was meant to escort Agadia, a daughter of mine, to her betrothed in Gale Rocks. She was a great archeress, and the road from here to the coast is not that dangerous. Are you sure about that? When they saw goblins on the road, Asterion ordered her to push through, right into their trap. She touches her deer-shaped buckle. They got jumped like a bunch of wealthy pilgrims. A Roadwarden worth their gruel should know better. He can fight with a blade, but my girl, she never had a chance. She sighs and looks at the gate. He disappeared soon after his pitiful attempt to apologize to me, and we closed our doors behind him for good. I'll let you know if he ever tries to return. So, any idea where we can find him? She adjusts her cape with an annoying shrug. Try asking for him in the north. He spent most of his time between White Marshes, Gale Rocks, and creeks. Here he wasn't that eager to share his plans. Why did we let him leave? He didn't do anything well forbidden by our laws. He's simply stupid and can't be trusted. But this isn't Haviland. We have no rich folk to dread. We treat each other fairly. Lost in her thoughts, she rubs her neckline on her dress. One good thing I can say about him is that he didn't try to justify his decisions or avoid consequences. But I'd rather have him prove he can do what he's asked for him here. So what about the daughter? A few breaths, her green eyes seem something in your face. Her words are careful yet hesitant. She's with the fogs now. The goblins were after food, so they carried her shell away. One day she's going to charge our walls, awoken and empty, even though she was a bit mawkish. Her heart was strong and patient. She listened to people, was ready to help them and cry with them. I could tell you stories, but for what? Let the dead rest. You have a big family. She titters weakly. At one point, there were 12 kids living in our house, 9 girls, 3 boys. They come and go just as it should be. A few are already with the forest, but most are all grown now. Even started their own families. She looks away at a girl wiping spilled milk on a wet cloth. To be perfectly clear, they aren't exactly our children. It's custom of our village for the mayor to look after the orphans. Huh, well that answers a question. Thankfully, Eric's has a big heart and much more patience than I do. As she speaks, her smile widens. Thanks for the help. I wonder, back in Haviland, did you spend any time in Blackwood Corner? It used to be this dark, dirty alley with muggers working even in the daylight. I stayed there with Octavia the miller in exchange for doing chores for her. She had a small wooden hut. So here's our options. Since the war, even the soldiers have avoided the street. People say it's a home for thugs. You wouldn't recognize it's now a respectable street with one of the fanciest inns in the city. It would make you feel as if the old days. The Boarhead Inn is still almost 50 years now, or there's no such street anymore. It fell to a great fire. It fell to a great fire. You tell her about the riots that happened 2 years after the invasion, led by the hungry, ill people with no place to go. You describe briefly the streets that have risen from the ashes, but it doesn't spark her interest. Can't say I miss that place, but it's weird to think that such a strong memory is no longer part of reality. Like a tree you've walked by 1,000 times and one day it's been cut down. She sits silent, absently observing your lips. So we have other questions. Tell me about the necromancers in the north. She taps her fingers on the table. Yes, I have. After you ask her to tell you more, she seems to regain her confidence. Me and White Marshes, sure, I don't know all that much about what's happening there. We avoid their lands if we can. I shouldn't gossip about it with strangers. We can talk about it on another occasion. Well, let's get a little personal here. You're better off than others. What's your secret? She reaches for her buckle and her voice grows cold. There's no secret, traveler. Ha! That sounds like something someone with a secret would say. There's hard work, risk, and sacrifices in the support of those that care about me. The good things that happen to me shine on my people just as much. Think about it before you mention it again. Sweet. I've pissed her off twice now, but it's, I don't know. There's something off with the way that's there. So what would it take to consider joining Hovelman? I can consider it right now. While she laughs, her eyes remain keen. But if you want me to give you the answer, let's see. She looks up to the right, theatrically raising her hand to her chin. Some gestures of goodwill would be a great start. Since you're the guild's messenger, I need you to show me you can be relied upon. She gives you a wide, white grin. That's only the first step. Of course. Do you even have the power to handle tax negotiations? She scoffs loudly. I can't even read. Do enough for my village and I'll hand you a beautiful signed letter, a list of all the things my neighbors are looking for, as well as what they can give in return. Your superiors are going to see more than enough to prepare their offer. I think that's fair. Well, since she's already complained about people implying stuff, do enough for my village is vague. She nods towards the people gathered at the tables. I'm not the ruler of this place. My friends trust me because I see things as they are, and I'm willing to act. Prove that you're helpful, and they'll be happy to match your efforts. I want you to succeed. She puts her hand on her chest. But we don't give strangers more than we can get from them. If you want me to argue in your favor, show us your worth. Well, there we go. Perfect. One more thing. She puts her elbows on the table, leaning closer to you. If you do go behind my back, I'm not going to wait for a dagger. I'll end you first. She rests her chin against her open palms, giving you a disarmingly warm smile. I'm sure people already know that we have a new Roadwarden. Maybe ask around to see if anyone needs your help. The more my neighbors trust you and need you, the more willing they'll be to offer you better pay. Well, what can I do for you? Aw, so kind to ask, but before I ask in return, let's see how you can walk, shall we? Her eyes wander left and right as she gestures for a nearby guard to move away. He nods and gestures for a few other souls to follow him. When a few locals cast curious looks at you, they turn away as quickly as you notice them. The mayor's shiny green eyes are still locked on you, and her voice is close to a whisper. Since Asterian's disappearance, there's been little trade on the roads, and not much news reaches us. Be so kind. Her flirtatious tone distracts you with how obviously fake it is, and help me learn some interesting tales about our neighbor. I smile back at her. You mean the ones that weren't meant to reach you? See? I knew deep down you're a true sage. She titters and straightens up, adjusting her cape without hesitation. Do you have something to share? Well, we do have a few things to share. I don't know if she's going to pay me, but we'll at least give some information for now. The soldiers who came here in the spring were meant to find a good spot for a new outpost. She smiles widely. You don't say. Knowing that, I'll prepare a few very tempting suggestions for the officials. After she seals her lips, she lets out a quiet chuckle. The squad that made camp at the southern crossroad is now nothing more than 2 people. They plan to return to Havelvan in the fall. Since they cleared the camp of brigands, they went quiet, and I almost forgot about them. She rubs her chin with her thumb. I'm surprised they managed to stay alive till this day. Sending such an inexperienced group here shows that the officials misjudge this land. Alright. So tell me, how do the people dress in the city these days? It's similar to what we have here? Before the war, the merchants were wearing these really long dresses and robes, way too long for my taste. They got mud stains even after the rain. I see no reason to keep shoes completely hidden. Okay, so shortage of fabric, or for years there's not enough hemp and wool, so people have started to wear furs again. Most folks wear headgear. I don't pay much attention to fashion. Well, let's try. There's a shortage on fabric. That's true. At least we can hope that if the visitors arrive, we won't stand out much, she laughs. But also just her dress drawing your attention to its superb quality. And who knows, maybe our little village is going to help these unfortunate clothiers. I'm sure we could spare a couple of sheets of fabric. Well, we also have the troll tablet that we got handed to before. Could you tell me what's on here? Pretty! She taps the carving on the back. You sure you don't want to leave it with a cacios or a few bones? She glances at the letters, then puts the tablet on the table. It's just some farewell letter written to Valens. His husband says that he couldn't stand this nightmarish village, and that he met someone else during his hunting trip. It ends with we will start a new family. Goodbye. No signature. Well, Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, we know a little bit about Howler's Dell. Let's see what else we can get to wrap up this episode. It is what it seems like, the greatest village in the far north. She raises her hand and makes an inviting gesture. Though I hope to still improve this and that. She winks at you, but is suddenly interrupted by the pain cry of a little boy who hurt his knee during a fall. As an amused elder tries to calm down, the mayor shrugs it off and titters, then meets your eye. Life is good here. We have what we need and a lot of what we want. Building on top of more than 12 generations of hard work and bravery. She spends a good few minutes telling you about Mouflin's wheat, rye, hemp, cheese, and wool. Proud of every glimpse of prosperity, whenever she mentions an artisan, shepherd, or farmer, she doesn't miss a chance to mention how significantly she's improved their conditions. She also omits some topics. You hear of no tale songs, ancestors' rituals, or days of prayer. It's like listening to a tax collector. Only at the very end of her speech does she mention wisdom of the elders, now who kept in their teachings of the druids, who help her guide those who trust her. They heal our wounds in our gardens. She explains, but then changes the topic to all the fruit trees. When she's done, I nod politely. We talk and talk, but still I don't know where you're from, Kira. What's your story? Have you lived in Havelman your entire life? So we have some option. In a way, I know it as well as any other city folk, but every spring I trained in horsemanship in a nearby village. Only for a bit. I was raised in a small village just nearby and moved to the city after I decided to look for luck as a Roadwarden. My past is already buried. Let's not dig into it. I've pissed her off twice. I'm not going to go for strike 3, so... Train for horsemanship. I was just going to ask about it. I couldn't imagine someone building a stable and a paddock in a place where you can't squeeze in a single new horse. Your accent is very city-like, and that of a merchant. Well, thank you for your time. So we're at the 8 Bale Inn, and things suddenly changed here on the table. We have Theus, Erix, we can go to the trader as well. We have 5 hours left. That was a very different episode than I was expecting here. We were at the crossroads. We tried to go east. We tried to go west. We can't actually travel anywhere right now. But we're going to pick up right from here next time. So this is Asher with Roadwarden, where we have discovered yet another village, and Howler's Dell is a prosperous village, but I definitely have some questions about the mayor and her stability. So that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments, and we will do this again soon. You all take care.